Okay, this is chapter number 11, that is New Empire and Kingdoms. So it tells about Prasastis. Prasastis, like what they tells. Let me be very clear. Since we have gone through inscriptions, manuscript, the inscriptions is relatively on a hard surface and manuscript on the soft surface like leaf. But Prasastis are also inscriptions. They are written in the praise of the king, their personal quality, like Samundra Prasastis in Allahabad by Hari Sen. So this was inscribed on the second pillar at Allahabad. The inscriptions is of a special kind known as Prasasti, a Sanskrit word meaning in the praise of. Now, the inscription is of a special kind. A Prasasti is known as in the praise of. It means what it means that it cannot be trusted as authorized source for knowing the personality of a king or of that time. It may have been used as order to propagate the ideas to have a favor to the king, but it cannot be trusted at all. So we have this, and we know at a such Prasasti like Gautamiputra Satkarni Bala Shri Satkarni's sons, and he became the far more important ruler of the Dakshinapath. And we have Samudra Prasasti. It mentioned about Samudra Prasasti. Like Samudra Prasasti tells us, the poet who praised the king in the glowing terms, as a warrior, as a king who won the victories in the battle, who was from learned and the best of poets. The Prasasti was composed in a very long sentence. And this is one of the Prasastis which is of Samudra by Harisen, that whose body was most charming, being covered with the plenteous beauty of the marks of hundreds of scars, caused by the battle axes, arrows, spikes, spears, barbed darts, sword, iron club, javelin, barbed arrow, long arrow, and many other weapons. So we have a number of things. We have to notice that Hari Sen would describe four different kinds of ruler in the Prasastis of Allahabad and tells us about the Samudra policy towards them. There were rulers of Aryabharat, and he mentioned that in Aryabharat there were nine rulers who were uprooted, and the kingdom were made the part of Samudra empire. Since we see that the cities, their first developed cities were important in trade. Then the cities were developed to the Mahajanpads, and they tried to conquer the many various cities of the importance. And this is how the empire had many cities, many customs, many culture. They started the regional governance, and then there started a you know then they started a different type of administrative system, and they started taxation, and the trade become important one. Now we had Aryabharat, then we had Dakshinapath, where there were 12 rulers in that. They surrendered to the Saman group, and they were allowed to rule again. Now we had another circle of neighboring states, including Assam, coastal Bengal, and Nepal, and a number of Gansang in the northwest, marked by the purple on the map. We have to remember the map, but we cannot move to the map now, so it has to be remembered. Now, the board the tributes, followed his order, and attended his court. Now, the fourth thing he mentioned about the ruler of the outlying area, perhaps the descendant of Kusans and Sak and the ruler of Sri Lanka, who submitted to him and offered daughter in marriage. The marriage diplomacy is very much famous, and who made it famous is Bimbisar, who made a matrimonial alliance with various kingdoms like Kosal, Lichvi, and we had this is the map that is mentioning about here, that is inner state, other is outer state, then we had Aryabrat, that is here. So that is what important is. Now we have genealogy. Most places they also mention the ancestor of the ruler. like Samundrup, the great grandfather, grandfather, fathers and mothers. His mother Kumar Devi belongs to the Lichvigan, and his father was Chandragupta, was the first ruler of the Gupta dynasty to adopt the grand title of Maharaja Dhiraj, and a title that Samandragupta also used. But his grandfather mentioned simply as Maharaj. It means that family gradually rose to importance. So this is a very good conclusion from the Prasastis itself. So we have this. Now, Samandragupta in turn figure in the genealogy list of ancestors of the latter rulers of the dynasty, such as his son Chandragupta II. We know about from his inscription and coins. He led an expedition to the western India where he overcame the last of the Sak, and according to the belief, his court was full of poets. And remember, Kalidas, the poet, Arjabhat, the astronomer, were the courtman of that Chandragupta II. Now we have the Harshvardhan and their Harshcharit. When we learn about the Gupta ruler from their inscriptions and coin, we found about some king from biography, like Harshvardhan, who ruled for nearly 1400 years ago, was one such ruler. His court poet was Banvat, who wrote his biography that we have read in Sanskrit. This gives us genealogy of Harsh and ended with his become king. Now, Zhuangzang, who we see that Fahim, Zhuangzang, they both visited India at that point of time. Zhuangzang spent a lot of time in Hearst's court and he left a detailed account of what he saw. Hertz was not the eldest son of his father but became king of Thaneswar after both his father and elder brother died. His brother-in-law his brother-in-law was the ruler of the Kannauj and he was killed by a ruler of Bengal. Now Harsh took over the kingdom of Kannauj and led the army against Bengal. Okay, it is a very interesting story to cover, but we will cover in the later phases of our study. How he took the revenge from the ruler of Bengal, that is Pal dynasty. Now we have, although he was successful in the east and conquered both Magad and Bengal, he was not successful elsewhere. Like he marched to the Deccan but got defeated by Pulk Singh II. Now we had Pulk Singh II also made a inscription known as written by Ravi Kriti. We will come across in the latter phase. Now we have Pallav, Chalukya, and Pulkesin Prasastis. Pallav and Chalukya were the most important ruling dynasty in the South India during this period. The kingdom of the Pallav spread from the region around their capital called Kanchipuram to the Kaveri Delta, while that of the Chalukya was centered around the Raichur Dwap between the rivers of Krishna and Tungbhadra. We have to be very clear that there were Chola Chera Pandyas. Now we have Pallav Chalukya and Pulkesin. So we have Pallav, that is Kanchipuram, Kaveri Delta, Chalukya between Krishna and Tungbhadra. Aihole is the capital of Chalukya. Now it was an important trading center. It developed as a religious center with a number of temples. The Pallav and Chalukya frequently raided one another's land, especially attacking the capital cities, which were prosperous towns. We have the best known Chalukya ruler was Pulkesin II. We know about him from a prasasti composed by his court poet Ravikriti. This tells us about his ancestors who were traced back through four generations from father to son. Pulkesin evidently got kingdom from his uncle, and according to Ravikriti, he led expedition along both west and east coast. This PDF is also, this page is also, corrupted, but we will take it. Now we have very important inscription, and I think it must have to be mentioned here, but since the page is not there, I will try to make a separate video of these two pages, because this page is some very important because it is written here. That it is mentioning about inscriptions of Pallav, that mention about Sabha, that is an assembly of the Brahmin landowner. Ur, that is assembly found in other areas where landowners were not Brahmins. Now, this also mentioned about the three, that is Nagaram, that is organization of merchants. Then we had Samanta, that is military. According to them, they have been given their due land and they had to maintain their military. And whenever there is a problem to the king, they had to offer service to him. And this is what inscription of Pallav mentions about their administration. We had these policies were reasonably effective, but sooner or later some of the powerful men grew strong enough and they set up their independent kingdom. Like in feudal system, if you learn about the feudalism in Europe, you will come across that the center of the king in some time after the feudalism, if there is a weak central power, then the regional one gets independent one. And this is what happens even after in the South India. Now we have a new kind of army. Like the some of the king maintained a well organized army with elephant, chariot, cavalry, and foot soldier. Besides, there were many military leaders who provided the king with the troops whenever he needed them. They were not paid regular salary. Instead, some of them received grants of land. They collected revenue, they maintained soldiers, they provided equipment for warfare, and they are known as Samants. Whenever the ruler was weak, Samants tried to become independent because they had a strong army, they had weapons, they had revenue in the form of land, so they are the one who could become independent. Now we have assemblies in the South Kingdom. Like the inscription of Pallav mention a number of local assemblies. Sabha, which was assembly Brahmin landowner, Ur, that is assembly which found in the area where the landowners were not Brahmins. We have Nagaram, was an organization of the merchants, and these assemblies were controlled by rich and powerful landowners and merchants. We have since they were the one who controlled it, in the previous chapters we come across the things grahpati, gram bhojak, and Kamakaranas or Das in the North India. So they were also one, that is a Gram Bhojak, was the village headman. They were also powerful and rich. They had hereditary structure. They also controlled the army. They were entrusted with the police functions and judicial functions by the king, and they were also used to collect revenue and supply to the king. While we have ordinary people in the kingdom, we have very occasional glimpse about the life of ordinary people. Like Kalidas is known as for his play for depicting life in the king's court. Like an interesting feature about his play that the king and most Brahmins are shown as speaking Sanskrit, while women and men other than the kings were using Prakrit. Like Abhijan Sakuntalam, which is the love between the king named Dushyant and a young woman named Sakuntala. So we have this. Now we have the Chinese pilgrims Fine who noticed the plight of those who were treated as untouchable by high and mighty. They were expected to live on the outskirts of the city, and when they enter in the town or marketplace, they have he had to strike a piece of wood in order to keep himself separate. By hearing the sound, one avoid touching him. Now we had Banbhat who provides us very vivid picture of the king's army on the move. Whenever kings move, he booms with weapon, pot, pots, pan, furniture, golden footstool, means a lot of karwa carry with them. And whenever they take rest, they left a trail of destruction behind. Elephants often tramp down the huts of the village Oxen yoked the caravan of merchants and ran away. So the whole world was swallowed up in the dust when the king lived. So it is a very good depiction. Now we have elsewhere. We have Arabia, although it is in desert. In fact, Arab merchants and sailors who played an important role in the sea trade between India and Europe. Others who lived in the Arabia were Bedouins, pastoral tribes depending mainly on the camel, hardy animal that could survive in the desert. So Arabs were one who were in the contact in India for trade, and they carried trade between India and Europe. Around 1400 years ago, Prophet Muhammad who introduced Islam in the Arabia. Now, like Christianity, Islam was also a religion who stressed on equality and unity of all before Allah. For Muslim men and women, for believing men and women, for devout men and women, for true men and women, for men and women who patient and constant, for men and women who humble themselves, for men and women who gave in charity, for men and women who fast, who guarded their chastity, and for men and women who engage much in Allah remembrance, for them has Allah prepared forgiveness and great reward. It is all about the faith. Now we had, with hundreds of years, Islam spread to the North Africa, Spain, Iran, India, Arab soldiers. Now we have in India, for specific, Arab soldiers who conquered Sindh, the story of Dahir, who was the king there, and he, in his region, a ship was looted by robbers, and the king of Arab, the ship was of the king of Arab carrying goods, so he demanded compensation. Dahir refused it, and he was the king of Kashmir region, and this is if he refused it in order to you know get compensation from the king, and the king of Arab sent his army under the leadership of Muhammad bin Qasim, and here they established their kingdom for the first time, and they imposed jizya for the first time, and from here the Islam spread. So this is what the chapter ends. Now we have the next chapter we will study. Thank you.